Okay, so we need to ask ourselves. Today's Chabura is entitled, What Does God Fear? But before we get into that, let's look. Did you know that today, in this modern world, we know that there are about, according to the statistics from this accredited site Burah, that there are about 3.5 billion active social media users. That's a lot of people. Can everybody see the screen? Is it sharing properly?
We are good.
Baruch Hashem. That's so many people. That's like, as they say, they're 45% of the world's population. So people try and deny it. Let's see over here what Jessica Elba has to say about it.
Do you have Instagram? No. Snapchat? Still no. Then what do you have? A life?
So despite what people may actually be saying, 90.4% of millennials, as you can see over there, they're using the social media. It is something which has taken everything over by storm. And this internet, everything that's coming around it has got so much potential to do good, but also the converse. Things can go so south so quickly. With just a few taps of a button, there can be more pritzes than anybody in the shtetl could have seen within 2 seconds. They could probably blow these people's minds. We're in a different age here. And we have to understand what this means. And with that, let's go to our source sheet. Before then, we just have to see now how problematic things can actually get.
Definitely don't need it. I don't need it. I don't need it. I need it.
Right, it can be so problematic. It can be so addictive. But let's go now to our source sheet and see what it really means. If everybody could please turn there to source number 1. We see over there, King Solomon says to us that the righteous 7 times, the righteous man falls and gets up, while the wicked are tripped by one misfortune. When he said that, it was times 7. When we think about it now, it was probably 7,000 by the day. Things have just gotten a lot more intense. And we have to think about this. What does it mean psychologically to keep falling and going down like this? How does it impact us? When 1 minute we're flying high up there and we're doing Torah, we're doing mitzvahs, we're having the best time of our lives, we're going to shul, we're doing minyan, everything, and then all of a sudden, it's over, a corona comes. Or chas v'shalom, something else happens, and it's just not what we expected in life. And sometimes it can get so overwhelming that we just want to give up. So this is now what Rami Nachman says to us over here in Likutei Moharan in the second part, in Tinyana 48. He says over here, we'll read a little bit and then we'll look into the English. He says, I'm reading base, you can follow along with me. You need to be an akshan, to be someone who is stiff, to be someone who is stubborn. The Jewish people were called an am kashe oiref. It's the same word, to be a nation that is stiff-necked. We don't budge. When things don't look so happy anymore, when things looks like the world's gone into a whole lot of disaster and we're trying to come out of it, and the price of oil was negative, now it's positive, and nobody knows what's happening, and it's just also confusing, we have to be chazak v'ametz. We need to be strong. We need to lachizat. We need to grab yourself, to stand. You didn't even fall, Rabbi Nachman says. He says that you are literally thrown down. That's hectic. Chas v'shalom. B'chol pam. Ki lifamim yesh mapilim echad me'avodat Hashem. Because he says, I want you to know that these falls that you're experiencing, that's actually part of your service of God. As it's known, you have to do your part. What you can do to serve God. Do not give up. Whatever you do, you should always have this energy to carry on. And he says further that actually, what's going to happen here is that everything that you're falling down and it looks like you're out of it, it's actually all because you're nearly there. And even the greatest among us experience this. So for the sake of time, I just want to look at it in English now so that we can go a bit quicker. If we look at number 3 over there, he says, and no, an individual can already be at the entrance to holiness, yet turn back on account of the aforementioned confusions. Alternatively, when it gets close to the entrance, then the other side, the Satan overwhelms him with very, very great and awesome power, may the merciful one spare us, and does not allow him through the entrance. On account of this, he turns back, God forbid. For such is the way of the Satan, the other side. When it sees the person is close, really close, to the gates of holiness, and is about to enter, then it mounts a very powerful assault against him. May the merciful one spare us. Accordingly, it needs to have great encouragement to counter it. So Rabbi Nachman is saying, it's quite shocking. Think about it. Imagine you're in a race now. For those of us who enjoy running, you're nearly there. You don't know that you're nearly there though. You're running and you're low on your breath, and it seems like this race has just been going on forever, and you don't know when it's going to end. But just around the corner, right there's your goal. But you don't know that. And your body's aching and it's shaking and it's telling you, give up. You've done this too much. You're going to injure yourself and it's all over. But that's when you have to carry on, he says. That's when you have to have this great encouragement. And you need to get it from anybody, he says. And it can be so hard, but we should know that there is the power within us to do it. Right, let's move on to the next source. I encourage everybody to read the rest of it. Rabbi Nachman is so moving at this point. We're going to skip source number 3 for now and perhaps come back to it. To make this a little bit more interactive, could we have a little bit of participation? Would we be okay with that? Is that okay, Jacob?
Go me.
Great. I'm just seeing the first on my screen here. Jolie, do you mind reading for us source number 4 in Hebrew or English, whatever you're most comfortable with?
I don't read Hebrew. Should I, like, where it says Rabbi said, is that where I start?
Perfect.
Okay. Rabbi said, which is the straight path that a man should choose for himself, one which is an honor to the person adopting it, and on account of which honor accrues to him from others. And be careful with a light commandment as with a grave one, for you did know not the reward for the fulfillment of the commandments. Also, reckon the loss that may be sustained through the fulfillment of a commandment against the reward accruing thereby, and the gain that may be obtained through the committing of a transgression against the loss entailed thereby. Apply your mind to 3 things, and you will not come into the clutches of sin. Know what there is above you, an eye that sees, an ear that hears, and all your deeds are written in a book.
Shkoyach. Thank you so much. So beautifully read there. Now, I want us to focus on the first line over there, where they say, which is the straight path that, I'm going to say, a man, not a man, I mean a person, because that's what the Hebrew says, Adam, a person should choose for themselves. And what the Mishnah answers is that a path which accrues honor for him and from others. So the classic commentaries, such as the Bartanura in the medieval Italy, explains that means that you have to have like a little bit of balance in life. You don't go too much this side, you don't go too much that side. And it gives the example of money. Think about it. You have a lot of money. It would be really, really great for you if you just hold on to it and you keep it for yourself. And in that way, you'll get more and more. And that's great for you. You're able to accrue that for yourself. But that's not great for everybody else. But if you go to the other extreme and you're going to say be a very giving, you're not going to have anything left for yourself because you're just going to be handing out all the cash to everybody else, and it's not going to be much for you. So he says you have to be on the derech yeshara. You have to be what's good for you and what's good for other people. That's the pshat. That's the simple meaning. I want to share with you what the holy Rebbe, Rav Levi Yitzchak from Berdichev, has to say on this. Now, not all of us may know Rav Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, so let me share with you a quick story about him that really, really, I attach myself to the tzaddik because I think his message is one which our generation needs most. So he says so the story goes like this, that one day it was Yom Kippur, and there he was, there's a little break between Musaf and Mincha and Yom Kippur. So he was walking outside the shul, and he was going through a park over there, and he sees a Jew sitting and eating a sandwich on Yom Kippur. So what do you think this great big Hasidic Rebbe is going to do? He walks up to him and he says to him, Rabbi Yid, my dear friend, do you know that today is Yom Kippur? And the Jew looks up at him and he says, yeah, I know today's Yom Kippur. He says, do you know that on Yom Kippur we do not eat or drink? The Jew looks up at him and he says, of course, everybody knows. Everybody knows. You fast on Yom Kippur. He looks at him and he says, are you feeling so ill that if you don't eat or drink, you're going to die? And the man looks at him and he says, actually, when I woke up this morning, I was feeling quite well. And with that, Rav Levi Yitzchak throws his arms up to the heavens and he says, Master of the world, just look how honest your nation is. So he just had this way of finding the best in people, a way where you could look and you could just see something good over there. So what Rav Levi Yitzchak says to us is that Ezehu derech lishara, what's the straight path that a person should take? He says that's a path with which Tiferes lo yaseha, which will bring praise, glory, splendor. They're all the same translation of the word, different translations of the same word. So you've got to bring this glory, lo yaseha, to your creator, which is God. So if you have to give, that's the straight path to give to God. We have to ask ourselves, really? God's interested in what I have to give? Who am I? Like, I'm just a little dude sitting over here in Johannesburg, like nobody's even heard of Johannesburg, and like God wants me to do something for him? And he says, yes, that's exactly what he wants you to do. Because the Mishnah carries on, the first way, min ha'adam. I want this glory because it has to be min ha'adam, from the earth. Because Adam can also mean land. And earth represents, in the Hasidic literature, the lowest of places. When you've fallen down, when you've gone to rock bottom, that's where God wants you to serve him from. And so I think this is something which can be so, so powerful in our lives. We need to understand this very well, that God really cares about us. And God needs us to do these things because that's really what he's created the world for. Right. Now, if we look at the teaching, it near the end, it says over there, I'm just going to read the Hebrew for a second, and then we'll look at the translation again. Da milamala mimcha. Know that what from above is from you. They translate it as rather, know what there is above you, and I that sees, so on and so forth. Now, I wasn't able to source this. It's in the book Magid Dvarav Yaakov, which is the book written by the second Hasidic master, the Magid of Mezrich. And he says over there like this, Da milamala mimach. Know that what from above is actually from you. This is a very famous interpretation. It says it means that everything which is happening in your life, all these different spheres, they're happening because of your actions. It's all because of what you've been doing, thinking and saying. And there's a cute story which I heard, which really illustrates the point. So, one day, a long time ago, in America in the 60s, there was a Yid, a simple Jew, and he was out of a job, sadly, like quite a lot of people are now. But anyway, he decided to look in the paper, and he sees over there, he's looking, and he sees a job opportunity to be a chief of a Native American reserve. So it's not really an accounting job for a good Jewish man, but he decides, he'll take it. So he goes for the interview, and he's a man of darker complexion, and so he gets the job. He's excited. And he moves in there, and the first thing that they ask him to do is to read the stars and to say, what will the coming year's winter look like? And now he's an ordinary Jew. Like, what does he know about the stars, astrology? The only thing that he can read is the stock market. He's got no clue. So he does what anybody does, and he runs out the reserve, and he goes to Aleim Shalom, the phone booths, and he calls up the weather bureau back then, and he says, listen, tell me, what's the weather going to be like for this winter? So they say to him, it's going to be somewhat of a cold winter. So he goes back to the reserve and he tells the Native Americans that's going to be somewhat, somewhat, that's like a par of answer. It's not yes, it's not no, it's not milk, it's not flesh, nobody knows. So they decide they're going to start collecting some wood to prepare for the winter so they can light some fires. The next week, they say, okay, has there been any updates? So he runs off and he goes and he phones the Bureau again, and they say, this year it's going to be a cold winter, this one. It's going to be harsh. So he goes back and he tells this to the clan, and then they start panicking. They hear it's going to be a cold winter. They go and they start collecting wood. Everybody's busy collecting it. And so they got a good stockpile, and they come back to him and they say, okay, winter's getting really close. Now tell us, what's the winter going to be like, actually? So he goes and he phones the Weather Bureau, and they tell him this year is going to be the coldest winter that America has ever seen. He comes back now and he tells the tribe over there that it's going to be the coldest winter in American history. And so now they hear this and they start panicking. Every man, woman, and child, they're all getting wood left, right, and center. Everybody's running to get all this wood to warm their cold bones. And so now he's just getting really, really confused. So he phones up the Weather Bureau and he says to them, listen, guys, you give me 3 different answers about this winter. Get it straight. It's either cold or it's not. Like, what's happening here? So the lady on the phone says to him, do me a favor. Do you think we've got any idea about what the weather is? All that we know is that the Indians are collecting a whole lot of wood this year. So the idea is that everything is really coming from us. What's going on is that we are the cause of things to happen in our lives. It's all depending on our actions. And if we actually scroll back up and we look at what Rav Levi Yitzchak had to say in the previous source, sorry, I'm scrolling a bit far. He says over there in the second last line, here. And this, you should know that you should count for yourselves, referring to the Sphira, Daika Shekulam Tluyim Bachem. It means that everything is dependent on you, which is a very hectic statement to make. That everything in our world, everything that's going on around us, is as a direct consequence of our actions. Now, let's see over here the next source. I think this might be a bit cut out on the source sheet that I sent out to you, so we'll just see a little bit of it over here so it can be clear. So this next source number 5, it comes from the Rebbe Rashab, which is the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe. His name was Shalom Dov Burah, and he lived in the late 1800s and he passed away in 1920. And this was a mimer that he said on his 13th birthday for his bar mitzvah, and it's been custom ever since in the Chabad communities for people to learn and recite this mimer at their bar mitzvah. So we'll just see a little snippet of it over here. So it says, he says over here that you have to wear tefillin, as you can imagine. And he says it very clearly, this is the matter. So what he explained is something which is mind-blowing. He says that God isn't a hypocrite. Let me explain what that means. What that means to say is that God doesn't just tell us to do his commandments, but rather he actually does what he says as well. That God also keeps the commandments. That just like God commands us to put on tefillin, so too does God himself put on tefillin. And what's written in this tefillin, the Gemara asks, and the Gemara answers over there in Brachos, and it says that it's written the praise of Am Yisrael, Mi Kamocha Am Yisrael. Right, so we're running a little bit low on time, so we're just going to speed through this a bit. So the next source asks, what mitzvahs does Hashem keep and how? So this is really where I got the name for this year. Because if God keeps all the mitzvahs, then the Maggid of Mezrich asked, how does God keep fear of heaven? How does he keep Yiras Hashem? In other words, what does God fear? And the answer is something which is so deep to understand. He says that God fears what we're going to do. The Gemara in Brachos 33b says that that everything is in the hands of heaven except fear of heaven. In that we that everything that we're going to do is going to be predetermined except for our level of fear of God. And that's what God's concerned about. What are we going to do? How are we going to act? Are we going to be in accordance with God? So let's quickly read the next source. If I can be so bold, if I could ask Miriam if she wouldn't mind reading source number 7 in English or Hebrew.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, I'm just pulling it up on my phone so I could see it better.
Cool.
Am I starting at Hamek Devaraf?
I'm just a number, the one above.
The one above? Oh, okay.
Amazing.
And let all among you who are skilled come and make all that the Lord has commanded. The tabernacle, its tent and its covering, its clasp and its planks, its bars, its posts and its sockets, the ark and its poles, the cover and the curtain, the screen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Miriam. So I have a question for all of you. How is it possible for what Miriam read over there that all these people who are skilled, first of all, because we know that these Jews, what we read was about the Jews coming out of Egypt, and now they're being told to build a mishkan, a tabernacle. Where did these people get these skills from? They were slaves. They were busy building pyramids and stuff. They didn't really have, that fell down, by the way. They didn't, their cities that they built, they weren't even successful. So where did they get the skills to be able to build all these things? The tents, its coverings, its clasps, its planks, and its bars. So let's see the next source. Shira, would you mind reading for us?
Which Shira? Which one?
Yes, please. Would you read?
Wait, no. Are there 2 Shiras in this? You're talking to me. Fine.
Kaplan. Yes, please.
Okay. All those who are wise in heart, this included not only scholars, but all who feared heaven, if they would come to participate in the making of the tabernacle, Hashem would assist them, even if they had never learned a skilled craft prior to this.
Amazing, thank you. So what he's saying over there is that the people just had to come. The people had to decide that they could learn how to make this. They would have the ability to grow into having these skills. It wouldn't be that God would miraculously teach them how to do it. It would be that they just did it. So we have to wrap up, but I just want to share with you one last video over here. And this is, how do we do this practically? How are we able to serve God? How are we able to grow in a way that the people did in Egypt, to be able to serve God and do things that we didn't even know that we could possibly do? So we have Professor Carol Dweck to take us away with her award-winning, best-selling work of mindsets. She's got 2 of them, the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. So let's see her.
I heard about a high school in Chicago where students had to pass a certain number of courses to graduate. And if they didn't pass a course, they got the grade, not yet. And I thought that was fantastic, because if you get a failing grade, you think, I'm nothing, I'm nowhere. But if you get the grade not yet, you understand that you're on a learning curve. It gives you a path into the future. Not yet also gave me insight into a critical event early in my career, a real turning point. Scientists measured the electrical activity from the brain. Students confronted an error. On the left, you see the fixed mindset students. There's hardly any activity. They run from the error. They don't engage with it. But on the right, you have the students with the growth mindset, the idea that abilities can be developed. They engage deeply. Their brain is on fire with yet. They engage deeply. they process the error, they learn from it, and they correct it. In one study, we taught them that every time they push out of their comfort zone to learn something new and difficult, the neurons in their brain can form new, stronger connections, and over time, they can get smarter. So let's talk about equality. In our country, there are groups of students who chronically underperform. For example, children in inner cities or children on Native American reservations. And they've done so poorly for so long that many people think it's inevitable. But when educators create growth mindset classrooms steeped in yet, equality happens. And here are just a few examples. In 1 year, a kindergarten class in Harlem, New York, scored in the 95th percentile on the National Achievement Test. In 1 year, fourth grade students in the South Bronx, way behind, became the #1 fourth grade class in the state of New York on the state math test. This happened because the meaning of effort and difficulty were transformed. Before, effort and difficulty made them feel dumb, made them feel like giving up. But now, effort and difficulty, that's when their neurons are making new connections, stronger connections. That's when they're getting smarter.
Right. So, Jacob, do we have 1 more minute?
You got it, Rabbi.
It's like an algorithm that you can rely on. It's a cognitive script, a mental shortcut that you can pull out whenever the situation is right. Even if you are talented, you can't succeed without having great habits. You don't need to lose weight. You need better eating habits, and then your weight will always be around where you want it to be. You don't need more money. You just need better financial habits, and then you'll always have enough money to manage the thing that comes up. You can be the architect of your habits rather than the victim of them.
Right. So, Chavra, the situation is like this. We don't have much time to explain, but now it is Yom HaAtzmaut for us. It's Yom HaZikaron. We need to know that through all our effort, through growing, through achieving with these micro habits of knowing that we can achieve and of doing the small changes, of fixing up our life, not seeing that we are overweight, but rather seeing that the issue is that we're not eating properly, we're not doing our studies properly. We are able to grow this, and if we can link it to Yom HaAtzmaut, we can see here that it is through everybody's coming together. It is through the nations fighting. It is through this growth that we will be able to grow into the country which God wants. As Rav Mordechai Greenberg, who is the Rosh Yeshiva of KBY, puts it, that where is it? Here, Rav Kook thus defines the state of Israel not merely as a place of security, but a state that is to run in a manner that demonstrates God's throne. We are there. We're at the cusp of Moshiach, everyone. And I firmly believe that if each and every one of us were to develop this growth mindset and to take on the habits which would lead us to success in all ways, in our learning, in our becoming Ovdei Hashem, in being more chesed, in being able to give tzedakah, in all these different spheres, then we will, please God, be heralding the Mashiach b'mehera v'yamineh.